Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here today at Black Therapists Speak. This is a gathering of therapists, Black therapists from both the United States and Canada who work in mental health and addictions with people who are dealing with the myriad of different life-altering events. We gather together and we just discuss the issues of the day. Right now, we're focused on the impact of COVID, the impact of the multitude of deaths that are happening within the Black community at the hands of the police. And we're dealing with intergenerational trauma and general cultural issues that pertain to Black wellness overall, but not specific and only to Black wellness. But I wanted to develop a platform for all of us to sort of gather together and share our wisdom, to share our experiences, and to let everybody know that we're here, we're educated and well equipped to deal with the work at hand, to undo the issues of trauma and loss and abuse and neglect, silence, abandonment, mistreatment. We're here. And in fact, we as Black therapists, we speak. Thanks for joining. Yeah. Hi there.
Hi.
Welcome everybody to this current episode of Black Therapists Speak. We have Latonya returning to follow up on some things that we touched on when she was here almost a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to leave it with her to reintroduce herself to y'all, and then I'll follow up on what it is specifically that's brought us to this place where she's coming back to share. So, Anya, tell us a little bit about who you are and what brings you to Black Therapists Speak.
Okay, so I am Latonya Sampson-McDonald. I am an associate marriage and family therapist. I am of Caribbean descent, but I'm also Canadian, which is interesting. But I lived in America most of my life. I became a therapist because I did want to figure out a way to heal people. And I realized, that the family is the foundation for everything. So I know there's a lot of brokenness when it comes to the Black community. It's another reason why, I won't change my appearance. Like, I wear my bright colors. I usually, if I got extensions, it's usually a thick grade of extensions because I feel like that also helps with my clients and feeling safe and feeling like I understand. And what brings me to Black Therapist Speaks is because it's kind of obvious. Yes, we have a different. I would say it's more than just what you'll read in a textbook. When it comes to healing Black people and bringing them to therapy. It's more work that we have to do. We have to have conversations like these and also put in that cultural aspect that's not included in what we learn when we go get our master's degrees and we go get our license and things of that nature. So that is something that we can't ignore, I would say, because we wouldn't be able to do our job and what we need to do for our community.
Yeah. That's excellent, because that's precisely part of the reason why I think people gravitated toward you when we were doing the last, when we did the last episode. And I got lots of requests to hear more from you and to sort of dig deeper. And I think a part of it actually even came from what you were sharing about, there was a bit of a clip of you sharing specifically about getting therapy and having a therapist and your experience within while going to school, and just the sort of disconnect with the professors in terms of what was happening in the community while you're in school, and everything's being sort of focused on other things and not really focused on the way that the murders and the uprising and things within the Black community would impact us even while in school or while at work. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that, about the impact of what's happening in the larger community and how that impacts the work that we do with the clients that we see. Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, it definitely impacts because I remember we had a presentation in my cultural class, multicultural class, and it's all about like cultural competency. And we had a classmate do a presentation on the Stanford rapist versus there was another young Black man that got convicted of rape, but the victim came out and said that she lied, but he had already spent 5 years and lost his college scholarships and everything. And the question was, what would you say to that Black family when they could compare it to this case? Yeah. And at the time, and I don't know if my answer has really changed, I don't know what to say, right? Yeah. Because it's so over my head. It's such a great power when it comes to the whole legal system and racism that I have yet to understand why yet. Right? I have yet to accept it yet. You know? And I feel like that's a real question because, okay, you can, say grief counseling or divorce or, drug addiction. Like there's ways you can help families cope with this, right? But when you're still frustrated at a system that you feel powerless against, it's very difficult as into where you want to lead this family.
So like, how do you help somebody deal with the systemic barriers and oppression that has rendered them an unjust verdict, or you'd be locked up for 5 years for something that you didn't do, and the judicial system is built around, specifically built to not help you. And how do you actually help somebody deal with that when you yourself can't deal with that, when you can't understand it and you can't process the why and how to lead somebody out of the burden of all that? That's an interesting question. So when clients come to you who are experiencing the struggle that we do as Black people, what sort of things do you give them? What sort of strategies do you have?
Well, I take it back. I take it back, and first of all, it's a parade. It's a party. The fact that you even sit in my office, like I'm already like, yay! Thank you for coming, because I don't know if they realize what they're doing. Like you're giving everybody in your bloodline a voice by you seeking healing. And I
Yeah.
always remind them that you're not just carrying your stuff, you're carrying your mother's stuff, your father's stuff, your grandparents' stuff, great
Yeah.
grandparents,
Yeah.
all the way back. So if you're, African American or of African descent,
Yeah.
um, I have to make you aware, like the power in you just deciding to say
Yes.
something, to say it
Yes.
out loud.
Yeah.
um that is where I start with
Yeah.
that, and we process that part first, so
Yeah.
they feel validated in the work that they're getting ready to do,
Yeah.
and that they're
Yeah.
understanding that it's not easy. That there's still a lot of things that we're all still trying to wrap around in this world, but still
Yeah.
have purpose in our life. So, I'm leading with, okay, this person is breaking generational cycles by even coming into my
That's
office to
right.
say one word. You see what I'm saying? And they need to know how powerful that is, how proud I am of them. And
Yeah.
then we're going to start to heal. And you have to remind them that it's not about needing help. It's
Yeah.
about your right to have the support that you need
Yes.
to
Yes.
survive, right? To
Yes.
live, to thrive, to still have
Yeah.
some sort of purpose, even though the world isn't perfect. Like there's things that
Yeah.
we can't
Yeah.
change. We can't change death,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We cannot. Racism is something we're still working on. We're in the
Yeah.
fight of, you know what I'm saying? And then there's also a reminder that none of us asked to be here.
Yeah.
Right? None
Exactly.
of us asked to be here, but we're here now. So
Yeah.
what are we going to do with it?
Yeah. 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 That's wonderful. So you start from the strength. You
Yeah.
start from the place of power. You
Yeah.
start from you've already broken through a number of barriers just to get into the office and
Right.
be in that position where you recognize you need more help than what you've been getting elsewhere, and you're starting here. And I've always found that starting from a place of power is so much better because you can build from power. You can build from strength. And if we focus as often we do on as the culture will have you do, not necessarily the Black specific culture, but culture on the larger scale will have you focus on the weaknesses, the things you can't do, and the obstacles in front of you, and all the. But you're just stuck if you're looking at that. But if you look at the things that you can do, the things that you have, the power that is within you, and the power that you've actually demonstrated and executed just to come to the office, that's really great place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great place to start. Can you highlight for me an incident or a time when maybe you met a client and like a high point in the work that you do, a time that was really that was a high point for you, that made you really maybe proud of the work that you do or the way that you do it?
There's been plenty of high points when I work with my community and when I work with people that aren't in my community. Yeah. Because I'm not fully assimilated here. Yeah. Especially in California, because I'm from the South. So if I would have stayed in Canada, it may have been easier because it's more mixture there of white people, right?
Okay. Yeah,
but in Georgia, it's more segregated.
Okay.
And I didn't, you see what I'm saying? So I'm used to not having to put on the extra, right? Stuff that we have to do to survive, right? To not look dangerous. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So going to California, they kind of already have, like, when you have a certain accent or you have a Southern drawl, they already have their preconceived notion of you, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm able to still, like, make you feel something, that makes me feel good. Also, I had I had a mother and daughter, and I feel like the Black mother and daughter relationship is very, very complicated.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's a lot going on there that,
Yeah.
I'm uncovering, within my own relationship with my mom, and then now with my clients.
Okay.
And, being able to like collect patterns, and I was able to, one of my clients was a domestic violence client.
Yeah.
And usually they want closure from their abuser.
Right.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. Like, we got to
Yeah.
get closure as to how you ended up in the relationship like this
Yeah.
in the first place. Because
Yeah.
there's signs that we ignore. There's certain traumas in our childhood that we
Yeah.
normalize. And
Yeah.
it could have us thinking like, oh, this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Black women. Oh, you guys are on the bottom of the totem pole, so you better be just happy somebody even like you, or whatever the case may be. So having to fight through that, and we were able to connect it to her relationship with her parents as to why, because they're your first example of love. And I remember after working with her, I was like, we should get your mom in here, let's get her in here. And she was just like, my mom has walked out of every therapy session I've ever been in since I was a teenager. So she's probably gonna walk out of this one. And I was just like, she hasn't met me. So bring her in here.
Yeah. Right on.
Bring her on in. And I was like, I know it's not professional, but listen, I'll bet you $1 she don't walk out. And she was like, okay, we'll see. So, she comes in the office, and, at first the mom is guarded, and, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But the thing is, how I had to explain to my client is, your relationship with your mother has a lot to do with the parts of her that's still a little girl and hasn't been healed yet. Because there's a certain age where mom is more like a sibling, like an older sister, than she is a mother. And I think that's the time when you start to look at certain things that you don't like about your mom, and your mom is also seeing the parts that she doesn't like about herself, and you're doing this, right?
Yeah.
And you can't hear each other, and she can't hear you over her own pain, unfortunately. And a lot of your relationship had to deal with like what was unresolved in her relationship with her mother, and so on and so on. Exactly. And the mother ended up saying, I feel like I hurt my daughter, and I'm sorry. And the fact that she was able to say that, and I didn't have to say anything, right? That just, like, wait a minute, like somebody did a magic trick, like a disappearing act in front of you, like, like you seen the miracle and the blessing open up right there.
Right there.
So I think that was like my proudest moment, that I didn't have to say it, and she was open enough. And how I got her to come to that realization is I validated her childhood, the mom's childhood, right?
Yeah.
Because usually when they're like this and whatever, when they come in my office like that, okay, that's the little girl I need to talk to right now.
Yeah.
To get her to speak. Because if don't nobody let the little girl speak,
that's right.
Nope, she ain't gonna be able to hear nothing. She gonna run this whole session.
Yeah.
So I think that moments like that, and I've had multiple moments like that. Before and after, but something like that, especially working with the daughter is almost in her 30s and the mom is older. That was powerful for me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love those moments when you see when you see the connection, and it's not even just a connection, it's almost like an explosion where the whole like the nut cracks, like the in the heart of the matter becomes so visible that there is literally a breakthrough, and the breakthrough is a visible, tangible moment. And I love those moments. I love those opportunities in therapy. It's the things it's really what brings me to this table, where being able to see and witness a person break free and find their actual freedom. Now, what goes on beyond that point? There's multiple hours and instances of work that is required to maintain and continue, but that moment in and of its own self is something then that you always go back to. If the person is, veering off in a direction that brings them down a negative path, you can bring them back. Remember this moment, and that becomes like the grounding point to help a person continue on in the journey. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Tell me about your podcast.
Well, my podcast, I started it, finally decided to start it when, right when the pandemic hit and we got put on lockdown. I was like, oh, this is the perfect time, even though I still had to go to work. But I'm like, people need something. And it took off some of the pressure, because before I had a show about 2 years ago. And it was a lot of pressure because I was still in school, getting my degree. And if anything knows, and that was the warning that I got, like, you're going to cry, you're going to write a whole lot. If you do it right, you're gonna go through the stuff that you're asking your clients to go through before you get clients while you're in school. So I had to stop the show because I was performing. And I was because I was getting more deep into my own stuff, and I didn't want to perform anymore, especially on camera. Because it was draining, to get up there and pretend to be happy, pretend to be motivational when I wasn't motivated and I wasn't happy. So I had to take a beat, and then switching over to the podcast after I graduated. It just took off some of the pressure of having to look the part, basically.
That's right.
So the podcast, it's called Live and Be Great, because I don't want people to just live. I want them to be great. I don't, there's too many people that left this earth just living. That's right. I'm just happy. Thank you, God. I'm just happy to be alive. That's it. That. And they they good. They're not really good, but that's all they've, convinced themselves that that's all they're worth. Right. You get into that. Oh, I'm just happy to have the lights, or at least I got food or whatever, and afraid to ask more and go after more, and will have children, and a lot of times will resent their children because their children wants to strive for more. Right. Yes. And then that can be a continuous cycle, because I don't think parents understand the power of their words to their kids, because they'll still feel it whenever you decide, but it's just because somebody told you that you couldn't do it and you believe them. So now that resentment for never healing that is passed on and passed on and passed on. Yes. So having that knowledge and knowing that I had to go through that myself, within my own family of, not being believed in. And I had to remove myself from that situation. Yes. And then I was also able to do more healing work and see my family in a different light and see what was wrong once I was out of the storm.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So just having a podcast and having a space to connect people to my story and other stories that I have, there's a lot of similarities in this thing called life, in this cycle of life, when it comes to motivation and inspiration and wanting to live a life of passion and purpose. And I believe everybody's pain has value. You didn't go through what you went through for nothing. It's either to help you or for somebody to help somebody else that you haven't even met yet. And it's not a loss, it's a lesson. Once you learn from it, and you need to turn that lesson into a blessing. So if I could bring that education and that motivation with people from a therapeutic lens, with everything I know, then I feel like I've done my job. So that's what you'll get out of the podcast. I was nervous about like, okay, I want it to be for everybody, but I can't help the body that I'm in. And I cannot acknowledge that this is an extra something that I have to deal with. I can't just, go to school and deal with breakup, makeup, marriage, kids. No, I'm also Black. So I can't like ignore that part. So I have to also include that. Not saying that everybody can't be inspired by listening or educated by listening, but I can't remove that because that will be, that's not my way. My way is honesty, right? And transparency. And that's just my mission. That's the way I work. I have to have lived it. I have to have gone through it. I have to be able to put myself, be empathetic not only to the people that I want to motivate and inspire, but also empathetic to my own story and my own journey and how it impacts me and how it heals me. So that's the focus.
Bringing your whole self to the podcast and not pieces. Because oftentimes I know, even with me, like I'm called into situations where I have to be fragmented. I can bring my intelligence, or I can bring, there's certain groups that I belong to that were size specific. Other groups that are, just because I'm a woman, and other groups just because I'm, in business. But incorporating who I am is, and in my entirety, I am fat, I am Black, I am female, I am intelligent, I am a businesswoman, I am all these things, right? And bringing my whole self to an encounter or a situation, those are the things that make me, they make me happy. I can be whole. Even in terms of my spirituality, I remember being, there was a period in which I struggled with my spirituality because in certain circles, they don't want to really talk about religion or faith, that elsewhere. And then in church, they don't really want to talk about, the trauma and the difficulties and things that are happening in life. And it's like, well, I am all these things. If I can't be whole and complete, then I can't be authentic. And so you're going to either accept me wholly and completely, or we'll just take a pass. And I'm okay with that. And you need to be okay with that too. Because I did spend a number of years fragmented and just showing up, with my intelligence and ignoring everything else, or showing up with my humor and my laughter and ignoring my pain. But the whole me, when I present and show up in the world as my whole self, that's when I thrive. And that's when I flourish. And that's when I see like extraordinary changes in people around me. Do you know what I mean? There's not as much, there's not the same kind of change when you're just fragmented. Yeah. Is that something you can relate to?
Of course. I have to bring the whole me. Like I remember, I felt like I told this story the last time, I'm not sure. But when I quit my 9-to-5, I had, when I knew I was about to quit, I decided to show my whole me, my last 2 weeks of work. And I had purple hair. And I remember they went and they wouldn't have a final dinner or whatnot with the co-workers, and they invited some corporate execs there. And one of the guys was like, "Oh, so what are you leaving and going to school for?" And I was like, "Therapy." It was a Black guy. And he was like, "Oh, wow, I never seen a therapist with purple hair, and just everybody just started laughing and stuff like that.
Oh, rude.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, like I've always been the type to get my strength from I'm gonna do something that somebody told me I couldn't do. And I made sure, like graduation, I'm walking across the stage and my hair purple, lavender.
That's right.
Okay, with my degree, okay, dancing, everything, just to prove that I can do it. Because there's so much based on a appearance, and a lot of times, just because it came from Black people, a lot of times we want to put a negative stereotype onto it. Like, I still battle with the term ghetto and ratchet, still battle with it. In terms like nappy and the N-word and things of that nature. I still battle with it because I'm like, why does it have to be negative just because it's on us? Right? Why can't it be seen? Why is it still not seen as human? Why would we have to put a word, a term, to make it something negative when you can put it on somebody else and it's chic, it's edgy, it's the new thing, right? So that part is definitely a part of my overall experience as to why I won't change certain things about me. It's not to play a role, but this is who I am. And I want people to be comfortable with who they are, and people have more compassion for them because everybody's upbringing is different. And just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean we can't grow from it, and it doesn't mean you got to change everything about you just to make the person in front of you comfortable.
I'm rejoiced over the fact that I came to understand quite early that I danced to the beat of a different drum. And once I came to understand that, and over the years, it wasn't instantaneous. I heard that phrase and it said something to me. You know, when sometimes something it just sort of resonated in my heart, and then certain circumstances or situations would happen, you know, years gone by, and that phrase would sort of rumble in my heart. You dance to the beat of a different drum. And it's like, all right, yes. And as I get older and I'm hearing this phrase within myself over and over, why I don't quite fit in there and I don't quite fit in there, but I really enjoy here. And it's like, yeah, you dance to the beat of a different drum. And really learning to be okay with being different. Just be. When you recognize, you know what, this we spend so much time trying to assimilate, trying to all be you know, like the person beside and in front and behind us, and we lose a piece of who we are. But our strength is in our uniqueness, and in our difference. And so that's like my growing mantra. I dance to the beat of a different drum, and really rejoicing. The older I get, I rejoice a little more in the fact that I am different, and I'm really good with that. But what that does for me then is that it gives me excitement and joy when I see the difference in other people, and I encourage them to embrace their difference too. And that's, I think there's something really powerful in being your whole unique self, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, and this wasn't part of why, clearly, because nobody knew at the time. This wasn't part of the reason why people were calling for you to come back, but just in light of where you are, because you're in the States, and so, but of course you're not in Louisville, but Were you aware of the Breonna Taylor verdict and the impact of that? Have you any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Um, I'm still very, disturbed by it, very angry, a little pissed.
Yeah.
Because just because we're used to it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
And that scares me that, the stages of grief, there's a numbness
Yeah.
that comes. There is a despair, there's a helplessness
Yeah.
that we're kind of forced to just accept and deal with,
Mm-hmm.
and like try to, there's still a lot of us that are going to try to find some sort of answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think me and my ancestors are tired.
Yes.
I'm tired, exhausted. I think the the term I'm probably looking for probably hasn't even been invented yet. As far as how I feel about that.
Yeah.
And even before that, when first hearing about the Breonna Taylor situation, her being murdered, it's like it's so many unanswered questions. Because when something traumatic happens, you ask questions like, why did this happen? We try to figure out why it happened, and we go to the people who don't really want to care or don't really want to do anything about it. They go to find a reason, right, to justify why we don't need to really care about it or do anything about it. And then I remember us, speaking briefly about the disregard of Black women.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean to offend anybody, because I see where we are now, but back then my mindset was, okay, if there would have been this uproar when we first heard about Breonna Taylor, maybe there wouldn't have been a George Floyd and the other after that. Black women are sort of like an afterthought. I remember even hearing about a Black woman in Canada. I don't know if you heard about her being thrown off of a building who had mental illness. And the police were called to help the family because she was going through an episode, and next thing you know, she's dead. She's it's like the lack of care. I remember during that time also, like, there was a Black woman that was thrown in the dumpster. There was a Black woman that was hit in the face with a skateboard. It was just like, but when you turn on the television, who is in front of the police officers screaming in their faces? It's Black women. And I think all of it, like the system as a whole. And the Latonya situation when she was raped and killed by a Black man after she gave a speech about, Black Lives Matter. And, that was her last purpose basically in life. And we didn't take care of our sister. We don't take good care of Black women in this community. And I remember having conversations with, because I'm the type, I bring my people to the floor and I ask them questions. If you're gonna be my friend, like my homeboy, my homegirl, like we got to talk about this. And I remember one of them saying that I think that Black men don't love themselves. So that is what you're seeing, because if they don't love themselves, how can they love another part of them? Right? That part is what I'm still like wrestling with. So this verdict was just like an extra nail in the coffin, an extra brick on my back, an extra slap in the face, an extra wound to that I have to now figure out how to heal and to dress.
It's interesting because we're the nurturers. We're the ones who we bring life in to the world, and our lives are so easily disregarded.
Yeah.
And whether it be within the Black community or the white community, I mean, we were the ones, the mammies and the nurses and the nursemaids for, and the maids for the white people all throughout slavery. We were feeding our master before we were even feeding our own, but we would still go home and feed and educate and clothe our own. And this has been our role all along. And yet we are so easily disregarded. And that brings a level of frustration for me, while at the same time, it's a mixed bag, because as frustrated as I am, I'm also really proud. I'm proud of the fact that we are as powerful and magnificent as we are as women, and that we do have voice. We need to execute our voice with precision. And I notice as I'm watching, the women now standing and speaking with such power and eloquence and authority, because we have it. It is us. It's in us. And when we let that power loose, you see change. And I'm watching as we got the verdict, the Breonna Taylor verdict, and the verdict of all the women that have been snuffed out with such enormous disrespect. But when you hear the outcry, and I'm hearing it now, and I don't know if I'm hearing it now because I'm at that place of frustration, or if it's because the outcry is louder. I'm not sure. But I'm hearing us fight in a way that I haven't heard us fight before. And that really does bring a level of pride in my heart. I'm hearing us fight, and not stepping back into the background and just quietly nurturing everybody, but standing up and saying, no, you will not disrespect me, and you will not silence me, and you will not shut me out, and demanding our place respectfully, and respectively, where we've always been, but we've been in silence. That's a change I'm seeing now, that we're moving, and that we are the instrument of the change that we see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult. It's definitely difficult. But what I do want people to understand, I think people think that Black women choose to be strong. No, that's by force. If you go back to the Willie Lynch letters, and breaking down the Black man in front of his whole entire family, to where the Black woman would just, okay, I guess I have to do it now, because you're going to take this away. And how it continues, when it comes to the justice system, modern day slavery, and the issue is they have us here. Once you have us here, like, it's a wrap. And there's a lot of repair that we need to do. And it's kind of like people have just accepted that Black women are going to be strong, and there's like, forget it, I'll do it, I'll take care of it, or whatnot. And I think there is not enough, like, wait. is this really how it's supposed to be? Because,
Yeah.
you know, we got the highest number of heart disease and, you know, the highest infant mortality rate,
Yeah.
pregnancy mortality rate. All these things are happening to us. And it's like, okay, I think Black men know that Black women are going to have their back without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
But we don't know who's going to have our back. Shadow of that. There's no one that we be like, oh yeah, we know you go show. There's no.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I'm I'm trying to like do my part in this reprogramming. Just even if it's just for, you know, my sister to say, I'm not okay. Like even that is a step in the direction, or I need help is a step in the right direction. Because I do see, and it's when I was trying to explain to myself, like, okay, this Toyin situation, and if you know, some of the information that came out about her family is that she was being abused by the men in her family. And she still wanted to go out there and march. And that's how she ended up dying.
Okay. Yes.
The part was, when I look at it, I still feel it looks as though you see Black women still reaching for their fathers.
Always.
When they're out there. And when they decide to put themselves, they'll even bring their daughters out to protest when, like, really, realistically, children need to be home. If you watching police shoot rubber bullets and tear gas, children, women and children should be at home. But that's not like there's no care there. Like there's just sacrifice, and that's it. Just sacrifice. And there's no real care. There's no understanding that we should not have to continue to take this sort of pain, not just from society, but from ourselves. As a race. It's that part that I'm still trying to work through and have conversations about, you know, how do we correct this?
And so a part of that does come from, because you're right, it does come from genuinely supporting one another, because there isn't that sure support from anywhere else. We've got to be our own support. And so providing those spaces for women to actually let go, let down their guard, let down their constant striving, and just be okay with not being okay. And finding that space where you can do that in and amongst women who are not going to take your break as, you know, reason to come against you, because right, but they're genuinely there to lift you up and support you. And I found tremendous power in creating those spaces for women to come to talk to. I run a group on Friday evenings called Check In and Chat that is genuinely for Black women to literally check in and chat. And one of the most beautiful things I see is, you know, week after week, one after the other, just sharing, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm fighting against, and finding genuine answers and offers of support and strategies to get through to the next week, and then the next week, and so on and so on. And then even it started just as a result of George Floyd, and June 19th was the very first check-in and chat. And since then, like, women will come back and say, you know what, I was in a meeting today and I thought about, you know, what we were talking about last week or last month, and it helped me encounter that opposition without the fear
Right.
that I used to have, or
Mm.
feeling empowered, or hearing, the voices of the women from this group. And those are the things that really, um, when I say that we are the change that we seek, I
Mhm.
genuinely mean it. We need to, and that's where the fight is coming from. It's coming from healing one another and empowering one another to stand against that traditional demand and expectation for us to just be on and constantly in the service
Right.
and of others. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
In the service. Yeah. And I'm just, you know, I love like having purpose. I want everybody, I talk to whoever you are to have purpose in your life and not just be going through the motions.
yeah, yeah,
But it's like being honest, if there's a protest for a black man or a black woman and you at home and you being abused, stay home.
yeah,
Work on your healing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Because there is like from working with, children who are in the system,
yeah,
and some of them they don't want to go back home, but there's a
yeah,
lot that at the end of the day their wish is always going to be that,
yeah,
my mom or my dad finally loves me,
yeah,
you know. So there is still this overwhelming, like, oh, just because this person is an adult, you just give them respect. That part,
mm,
right? And that is kind of how the abuse continues.
yeah, yeah,
Like, okay, just because they're black, or just because they're white, or just because they're whatever,
yeah,
that because of this position where we put them in, they're allowed to abuse you,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
That part is how we get, stuff cut short,
yeah,
how we
yeah,
are kind of co-sign for the trauma to continue.
yes,
um there's so many different ways I could go with this conversation,
yeah,
but that is also, something that I want to work on within any family, but definitely the black family of
yeah,
um yeah, they don't see that, okay, a child won't tell you till 10 years from now that they've been abused by uncle so-and-so or auntie so-and-so, because of that disconnect there,
that's right, yeah,
right?
that,
Of just because they're your elder, respect them when you're not
yeah,
giving them respect. Just
yeah,
because that's mom or that's dad, you're supposed to
yeah,
respect them when you're not receiving
yeah,
respect. And
yeah,
that's the part that's messed up. And I'm like, the situation with Toyin should have never happened.
yeah, yeah,
Like that psychological breakdown
yeah,
that
yeah,
she had to deal with, and how she was raised, being abused by her family. And
yeah,
in the midst of being abused by her family, she gets raped and killed while standing up for somebody,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
ugh,
yeah, yeah,
gotta correct this. It's a way to do this so you don't lose yourself in the process.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't that the incident in which she left the protest, and the
Yes.
gentleman picked her up and brought him to her, or how did it work? Somebody
Yes.
picked them up and gave them a ride to his
Yes.
house, and then he had her,
Yeah.
and was hurting her and raping her and
Yeah.
everything, and then called that woman back,
Right.
and the older woman came back, and he ended up killing both. Is that the?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's something like that. I think I don't think if he killed both at the same time. I
No.
think he killed one first,
Yeah.
and then Toyin was the last to get killed, and they found both bodies in the same
Same
place.
time.
But
Okay.
I don't think the women that were killed were related to each other,
No. Okay.
because they were saying something about how her her friend, somebody who supposed to be her friend, had her phone, so she couldn't call for help. Um,
Oh.
So the ball was dropped there.
Yeah.
With the friendship, like, okay, she don't have her phone, I need to go find her. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
start from some, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me
Yeah.
just a moment. Let me blow my nose in just a moment. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Yeah, it's interesting, this whole dynamic. Let me pause it. Yeah. um, I don't really have many more any more questions really, but I'm really grateful for the fact that we were actually able to talk. But what do you suppose? Look, so here's the thing that I heard. I heard as a result of that incident or that murder, that they're a little more structured in terms of the way protests are happening and the communication, buddy system, these sort of things amongst the women. At least this is what I've been hearing. Certainly I've heard it through Until Freedom. Not so much Black Lives Matter because I don't follow that one as much, but I Tamika Mallory and Until Freedom is the one that I tend to follow.
Okay.
And she was talking very much about that system of taking care of one another, and which is well, kind of what I was talking about taking care of one another as we go and we do whatever we do, that we really need to have one another's back. We really need to have one another's back. Have you heard that? Have you heard changes as a result, or have you not heard that?
No, I haven't really heard change as a result. I've just, been listening to like people's views of how that should be done if you're going to do it. My view, and that's just my human view, not necessarily my therapeutic view, is I'd rather Black women and children stay home.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And there's different ways you can protest. Like you can donate to organizations, you can speak out, have a platform. Like there's so many different ways you can heal. Ooh, what about that part? Right? Because I think we also forget that yes, you can say, oh, this one hit me, but that wound, that scar, that bruise still needs to be healed. That's right. I think that part is missing in the conversation. I want it different. Like I said, the last time we spoke, that I feel as though that's what was missed when it came to the protest back then, was the psychological piece of the multiple wars that Black people have, right? Not just from the outside world, but from within. That part, the toll that it takes here, is how I want to, speak my voice out to protest. But I'm like, if you must go out there and march, because you have a right to do that. Absolutely. I think the lineup should be white men in the front. Then behind them, white women. Behind that, people of color. Right. Behind them, Black men. And then behind them, Black women. Right? Because right now it's the reverse.
Yes, it is.
And if you're trying to protect and speak out against these, speak out for these people, these oppressed people, right? They don't need to be on the front lines.
Yes.
It just makes sense to me that way. Right? It must.
Yes.
You see?
That the oppressed is going to the oppressor and demanding their freedom. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. No, if you see something wrong, you want to be out there to help. The privileged need to be in the front. And if you look at our history, like the Civil War, the war before that, the War for Independence, they put the Black people in the front with no weapons.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
we are the minority. We're still
Yeah.
only 13%. And
Yeah.
that's why, that's why this whole black on black crime, that argument isn't going to work. It just isn't. Sorry, it's just not going to
Yeah.
work, because
Yeah.
regardless, if you say, oh no, they're shooting white people as much as they're shooting black people, it's still
Yeah.
doesn't, it's still not in ratio. Like, it
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
isn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're 13%,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the issue there.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, it's multiple conversations, it's multiple moving pieces that matter to move us forward.
Yes.
And definitely we have to give this part more credit, right?
Yes.
We have to
Yeah.
give this more time and more
Yeah.
respect
Yeah.
to correct this part,
Yeah.
because you sitting out there fighting in the streets, yet you tearing your kids up when you get home,
Yes. Yes.
right? Where does
Yeah.
it go? You telling you playing a role in your corporate job, right?
Yeah.
Pissed off, can't stand your boss is racist, whatever. But yet when you come home, you ready to knock your kids out or your spouse out.
Yes.
Like, they still got you fighting multiple wars for them,
Yeah.
right? And not for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to bring it back here and
Yeah.
take care of this part.
Yeah. Yeah. So it all comes back to the very beginning. It's the actual healing that is the fundamental, most important part. That we're fragmented, we're damaged, we're broken. We need to heal before we fight. And in fact, that the fight is the healing. Because it seems like, honestly, when you look at it, anytime we start to heal, there's something else to fight. And it's almost like the fight is put in front of us to make us stop the healing. But we need to persist in the healing in order to actually have the ability to fight. Should there be, something to fight at the end of that healing? But I think our fight is the healing in truth. Yeah. Our biggest fight is our healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the biggest fight, and the thing that we need to give ourselves permission to do, whatever that looks like, and be on no time but your own time. But if you're moving with a broken vessel, like, sooner or later that vessel is going to fall apart. If you don't sit there, put some glue on them cracks, some cement, something, to do what you need to do while you still have time and while you're still here.
Yeah. Awesome. So when does your podcast happen?
My podcast happens every 2 weeks, every other Friday.
Every Friday.
And I want to say last Friday was the first Friday I missed because I was out of town.
Oh, right.
But still got at least 11 episodes right now to go and binge. If you never listened to it before, they're still relevant because it's a current podcast, and we're still going through this mess.
Yeah.
So
all over.
Yes.
Where in Canada are you from, by the way?
Huh? I was born in Ontario.
Okay, right on.
And is it August? No, St. August. Something with the A.
St. Augustine. No.
No, it's something with the A. I can't remember.
That's where you were born?
Yeah.
In Ontario? Algonquin? No. All right, I'll have to think on that. I'm in Ontario. Yeah. I was actually born in Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think we talked about this before, that disconnect, because with you being in the States, there's in the States them saying, that are you feeling Canadian and not fully American? And though I'm in Canada, I've always felt Jamaican, and certainly the Canadian
Mm-hmm.
food made me feel Jamaican.
Right.
And then if I visit Jamaica and in and amongst my Jamaican family, they're like, no, you're Canadian.
So what? That's the thing. Like, I don't even know what to identify as, because nobody's taking me into consideration.
Yeah.
So I'm here in America. No, I don't have my citizenship. I still have my Canadian citizenship,
Yeah.
but I have this dark skin and I have African, descent. So, and I African Canadian, but my blood is, my parents were born in Guyana. So it's like, what is this? Right?
Yes.
And somebody said something powerful that I was listening to, the Grapevine. And it's a YouTube channel where they do like discussions about, topics that are concerning the Black community.
Yeah.
And one of them said that when somebody asks, what are you? I need to know what you are so I know how to treat you.
That's right. That's right.
I was like, wow, that is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
Right.
So how do I? But if you confuse me, I'm like, wait a minute. But the only like clear identified fire is my dark skin. Get what I'm saying? That's the clear identifier versus being racially ambiguous. You're like, oh, okay, not a threat, but I know. Oh, I don't even have to ask you. Just look at you, and I know that I need to treat you this way.
Yeah. That's so very true, and yeah, it's so very true. Which is why I gravitate so many times, especially here. I'd have non-Black people asking, where are you from? And I was born here. Yeah, but where were your parents from?
Yeah.
I had a friend that I grew up with who is like 8th generation Canadian. And so she's from Nova Scotia, her kin are in Nova Scotia, 8 generations back. So when people would say, oh, where are you from? And she, Canada. Well, where are your parents born? Canada. Yeah. Where were their parents born? Yeah, you can keep asking me that 8 times, and Canada it will be. And I always rejoiced over that, and just thought, that is the defining moment. They want to be able to say, you see, you're from foreign, you're not from here, you're not really Canadian. So you're Jamaican then. And, kind of dismissively. But it's like, no, I'm always saying that I'm Jamaican. I always think I'm Jamaican first and Canadian second. In spite of the fact that I was born here, because it doesn't matter where my parents had me. I was Jamaican. I'd be Jamaican first, and then wherever they gave birth or had me. And so I identify as Jamaican Canadian.
Yeah, I've always done the pushback though. Yeah, because that's to teach you like how perception is different.
Yeah,
I know that people aren't gonna believe me when I say it, so I just say I'm Canadian. I'm Canadian, and that's always been like my little giggle or whatever.
Yes.
Because I know you're not gonna believe that I was born there, even though my parents are Guyanese. I don't know. It was just more interesting to like see the expression on their face. Yeah, and I'll get the no, I don't believe you. All right, I'm Japanese. They're like, can you just tell me where you're from? Like, I just always got a kick out of that for some reason. Like whenever somebody gives you a reaction that you want, you just go with that one.
Yeah. Own it. Hey, why not? Why not?
No.
Well, Latonya, thank you so much for having this discussion, for coming back and talking with us today. And of course, just like always, your information will be in the description beneath. And I will definitely be listening to your podcast. And
Yeah.
I applaud you for all the wonderful things that you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Same to you. Same to you. Thank you for doing this and providing this platform. It's like I feel like Black therapists are kind of like the imaginary friend
I know.
that people don't believe exists and have a brain. And
It's so true. It's
so you're
so
making us real now.
it's so
With this
funny. I
platform.
hear that so often that there are no Black therapists.
Right.
And I'm like, what? There are two. There's
Right.
tons of us. There are
Mhm.
tons of us. And so it really pleases me to be able to, you know, have us out here and show people we're here, we're brilliant, and we're working this thing out.
Yeah,
We're working this thing out.
we are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, sweetie.
Of course.
Right on. Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you ring the bell? Can you subscribe to this channel? Can you share this message with friends and family? Let them know. Black therapists speak. Bye now.